How did the American dream die? How did the middle class die? I'm going to tell you, it started in the 1980s with trickle-down economics that did not work. They decided to give tax cuts to the rich and corporations saying that money would trickle down. It didn't. It just made the rich richer. Then we greenlit stock buyback. So instead of, when the productivity was going up, instead of giving workers more money, they just bought back their stocks so the shareholders could make profit and the executives could get bonuses. Then we had leverage buyouts, and the government didn't regulate leverage buyouts, and that was the start of private equity basically buying up everything so that they could make more money. Then we moved away from pensions to 401ks, which essentially just took the responsibility and accountability of the company to take care of their workers with the retirement and put it on to individuals, but we were never taught economics in high school, so how the fuck are we supposed to know about compound interest and investing? But they may said the 401k was better than the pension when it wasn't. Then they started shipping our jobs overseas, building the middle class of other countries so that they could make more profit, destroying the middle class here. Then we started ramping up the borrowing money and getting into debt as a country, which devalues our dollar. And then in 2008, we had predatory lending, which crashed the housing market, fucked over so many Americans. And then we used taxpayer money to bail out the banks. And when all the houses were cheap, the rich went and bought those up. And that's when you started to see the rent start to increase around the 2010s into the 2015s. And then in 2011, we allowed super PACs to exist. So billionaires can now buy elections, and they use that money on attack ads, which divides the country. Divide and conquer, and that's what they did. In 2020, we had the pandemic, which both sides of the aisle handled like absolute shit, shut down all small businesses, all the money went to the top, the rich got richer, they printed trillions of dollars more, which people needed, but what did all the people do? We spent the money because we needed to spend the money, and where did that money go? To the top, and they got richer. And lastly, they decided during the pandemic, let's lower the interest rates on buying a home to 2.5% to 3% so that people could refinance and get ahead. But no, all that really did was give the green light to a bunch of rich people to basically borrow free money and buy up all the fucking housing so that we can no longer own a home. And that all ended in 2021. Then we've experienced 25% inflation since the pandemic. And here we are in 2025, and we no longer have a middle class, and the American dream is dead.
19,000 homes, not apartments, homes in the metro are owned by 3 companies. That's nearly 1 in every 9 houses up for rent, and some entire suburban neighborhoods where corporations own it all.
The homes that most of these companies are buying are exactly the kind of starter homes that 15, 20, 30 years ago would have been first-time home buyers.
These institutions are literally stealing the American dream right out from underneath the millennials and Gen Zers, and no one seems to be saying anything about it. Owning a house in this country was a staple of the middle class for the past 50 years, and what these institutions are doing is wrong. And if they turn the entire country into a renter's economy and then they control the rent, they're going to keep people spending 30 to 50% of their income on rent, and people are going to be living paycheck to paycheck, and they're going to have all the control. One of the benefits of actually owning a house in this country is that in 15 to 30 years, you have it paid off. There are people who own a $400,000 house today, and their only payment is property taxes and homeowner insurance for like $600. It gives you a way to retire in the future with a lower housing burden, and you have some equity in your property that you can pull out and do things with, or just sit on it and be able to will it down to your children. That is the American dream. Why are we letting these companies do this?
You know, the problem I think millennials have is we remember when the American dream was actually a thing. Like, we got to see our parents and grandparents actually like achieve the American dream to a point. But like Generation Z and Alpha, we've never seen that because the American dream died before millennials became adults. It was completely dead. Today, Americans dream of just being able to pay their bills in their little shitty apartment and not be, you know, completely destitute. Like, most Americans today dream of just having one job instead of needing 2 or 3 to pay their bills. But I kind of feel like millennials got it the worst just because we saw what we were supposed to get, and then civilization made it to where that was impossible because of the greed of capitalists, where they've literally stolen $50 trillion from the working class over the last 50 years. But I don't know what's worse, knowing that the dream used to be like a thing that was probably always bullshit, or just growing up in a world where that was never even a possibility. I don't know.
The American dream is just that. It's a dream. It's a dream.
Could buy a house.
First generation. It's not attainable for me. It's not attainable, I don't think, for many millennials. My sister is on that cusp of Gen Z millennial, and like, it's gone for her completely. Her goal is to own a home, and it was to own a home 5 years ago.
I feel like we're going to be 50 by the time we buy a house, if this is the trajectory that we keep going on.
If we could buy a house, let's say we're in our budget close to the areas and where we want to live, like it's like a 1-bedroom, like 560 square feet. I can't get away from anybody in 560 square feet, you know?
Housing affordability hit a new low in 2023. Mortgage rates hit a nearly 23-year high.
I got to 25 and I had started my nursing career, and it was like, how did you buy a house? Because I just got out of nursing school and college just costed like $100,000. It just seems like the way things have gone the last, I don't know, 30 years have changed so much for when my parents did all of this.
I feel as if I get luxury goods, not as much as before. So we try to, I guess, tame our expenses in regards to that and just stick to like things that we need rather than things that we don't. Like, you know, clothing, food, but like, I don't know, cars or houses is something that's not attainable for us, nor daycare. Honestly, I can't stretch that far.
When we first started looking at daycare, it literally changed the topic of, we want to have a second child maybe in a year, to we can afford to have a second child in maybe 3 years with the cost of daycare.
The average daycare cost is $321 per week. The average nanny cost is $766 per week.
5 generations of my family have been in California, and I'm the first generation that has not been able to buy a house by like 25. I'm the first generation who also didn't have a baby until I was 30 because it seemed financially unattainable until that point.
Our son is 2. We're okay right now. But if we add another child to the mix, whether that's fostering or having one of our own, can we give them the same, I guess, love and attention and, you know, I guess, luxury goods that he or she would need? And we can't answer that question.
My husband and I spend a lot of time stressed and worried about making sure we're making ends meet. And we've already spent a lot of time recognizing that, like, what I had growing up, because my parents could afford it, like I won't be able to give as much to my son as that I had growing up, because we're just in a completely different state.
It seems impossible to get any of our financial goals like checked off our list.
Being a millennial right now feels weird. Back then, life felt normal. You can go to the store and not feel like you needed a payment plan for groceries. Now it's like every basic part of being alive comes with a luxury price tag. And it's high. Buying a house feels like it's impossible. Groceries cost too much. Fast food costs too much. Car insurance is high. Healthcare is crazy and high. Childcare is high, utilities are high, and we're not out here living some wild lifestyle. We're just trying to pay for food, keep the lights on, fill up the tank. We remember when Friday night meant pizza and a movie, not calculating if takeout is gonna mess up the rest of the week. Not just nostalgia. It's not just the music, the movies, the malls, the Saturday mornings, the simpler phones. It's because life felt lighter, America felt cheaper, basic stuff felt reachable, and the future didn't feel like one long subscription you can't cancel. We don't miss being young. We miss when life didn't cost this much.
The American dream of work hard and bootstrap and you'll be able to buy a home is clearly over. And at the heart of it, the core of it for me really is, I have 2 teenage daughters, and they're just very different than what I see on YA television. And they're less horny, they're less sex obsessed, they're less yelling at me saying you're going to ruin my life and slamming doors. And it's not any of that. It's a deep, profound, existential sadness, but with some hope, a lot of silliness. The American dream of work hard and bootstrap and you'll be able to buy a home is clearly over. They don't know what the world has for them, so they're very in the moment. And they're so desperate for a platonic soulmate to just share the existential fear of how am I going to get through the world. And they're all looking for it, and they're all scared.
Younger Americans have been shut out of the market. What is going on?
Well, I think this is just bad luck of a generation, to be honest with you. Housing affordability has really gotten out of touch for so many Americans. We saw the share of first-time home buyers drop to just 21%. And that's from the National Association of Realtors. It's the lowest number on record going back to the early 80s. So what we know is that younger Americans, while they wish they could buy a house, 50% say, hey, I can't afford a down payment with prices at these levels, and I can't afford to maintain and afford
So they're renting.
The regular cost. They're renting. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I think it's a smart move.
Can you build stability like that?
You-
Long-term financial stability?
I think that we have to get off this notion that the American dream is defined by owning a home.
I got you.
I think that people can rent, invest their money, and be very happy and have flexibility until prices and homes become more affordable.
I'd have to redefine the American dream.
You betcha.
Jill, thank
I'm in.
I'm sorry, but boomers ruined the economy for us. Boomers will say, just work hard and you'll be able to buy a house. When they bought a house, it was $40,000. College was cheap, rent was cheap, groceries were even cheaper. Now rent is like $1,800 for a studio apartment, but somehow we're just magically supposed to save money. Like, genuinely, how are we supposed to get ahead in this economy? Back then, you could support a family on one income. You could buy a house working at Sears full time. But now that just seems so unattainable. Budgeting in America in 2026 is basically survival at this point. You literally have to have a budget. You literally have to know where every single dollar of your money is going. This year I started using the Mine app and forced myself to make a budget because I literally was having no money left over after rent and groceries and other bills, stressing me out so much. Do I have a ton left over now? No, but I at least know where it's going. If you're struggling in 2026, I promise you, you are not.
Oh, millennials. So I actually think that one of the most frustrating feelings in life is doing everything you are told to do and still feeling behind, because for many years, millennials followed the script. We actually followed the script. Go to school, get a degree, find a career, work hard, build a life. That was actually the promise. And honestly, many people genuinely believed it. But today, a lot of millennials seem to be asking the same question. What happened? Because somewhere between college, graduation, and adulthood, the dream they were chasing started feeling further and further away. So guys, let's subscribe and continue watching, and then I'll be back with more commentary. Full credit to the original creators of these videos. Thank you.
Millennials were told to go to college and follow their dreams, but graduated into 2 recessions with crushing debt.
I pity them. I pity anybody that wasn't of age in 2012. You missed the peak. You missed the peak of America, at least.
The death of the American dream is now official. According to The Hill, tens of millions of Americans are 3 months away from financial ruin. 3 months stands between the average household and bankruptcy. Personal bankruptcy is up 16% so far this year. According to a recent national survey, a little over $6,000 in additional debt is all it takes to push a family over the edge. 50% of Americans do not have an emergency fund of $500. The cost of a half-decent secondhand car, a modest kitchen renovation in this country would put a man on the moon. Gas prices are skyrocketing. Inflation went up in March almost 1%. It has been 8 weeks. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed with no end in sight. Expect a gas shortage, higher gas prices probably for the next at least year. Shortages on the shelves, more job loss, which is crazy because we have a 25% long-term unemployment rate. Only 151,000 jobs were added in the entire year in the United States of America in 2025. At first, number 47, it said it was 1 million jobs. That was reduced down to 181,000. The American dream is dead. You have been scammed. You have been conned. If they say that we can't afford something, what it really means is we can afford this over here to help billionaires, but we can't afford this over here to help working Americans. There's no stimulation of the job market right now, no stimulation of the housing market. We have been in a supply crisis for years. The USA is no longer the greatest country in the world. Do you agree? Drop a comment for me.
Y'all, there is a new poll going around saying 70% of Americans no longer believe in the American dream, or they believe the American dream never existed altogether. And honestly, are people really even surprised anymore? For generations, people were told to work hard, go to school, get a good job, get a family, retire. Now people are working full time and still struggling with rent, groceries, healthcare, debt, and basic living needs. Now, a lot of young people don't feel like hard work guarantees success anymore. They feel as though they're running on a treadmill that never stops. And that's dangerous for a country, because once people start losing hope in the future, frustration starts to replace motivation. Now, to be fair, some people believe there's still opportunity in America, but there's just a huge population that believes the system does not work anymore for everyday people, or never did. So do y'all believe that the American dream is actually dead, or has it just become harder to reach? Let me know what y'all thinking. Is the American dream alive in 2026?
Okay, if you're between the ages of 30 and 35 and you have not yet bought your first home, and you want to buy your first home, but you feel like the American dream has been snatched away from you, there's a few things that started happening before you had any control over our current situation. And it started in 2008 with the foreclosure crisis. Okay, you guys would have only been somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 to 18 years old. And that crash primarily occurred due to subprime loans and predatory lending, which caused all of these people to lose their homes, and all of these houses went into foreclosure. So everything was all fucked up from 2007 to 2010. Then in 2010, things started to turn around, and those foreclosed homes were back on the market, and those people who were ready to buy were able to buy. So at this point in time, you guys would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 years old. Some of you were still in high school, and some of you were just starting out college. So let me give you an example. So the house that I'm in now is my third house. Okay. When I bought this house, I had remarried and relocated. So we were back in the market in 2010, and we put in 60 offers on the house that we're in now. So that would have been 15 years ago. We put in 60 offers, and we kept getting outbidded. And you want to know by who? Yep, you guessed it. Investment firms, investors coming in with cash offers on single family homes here in California. So these investment firms inserted themselves in 2010 after the foreclosure crisis. And 2010 was the first time that I realized, oh, so it's no longer an even playing field. Now, if you're out there looking for a house, you're actually competing with cash offers. And most of the time, they're investors. So over the course of these 15 years, these investment firms who are backed by the stock market have now taken a whole new approach. Now what they're doing is they're buying up lots of single family homes and putting them on the market for rent. And they're essentially pricing you out of the housing market. So essentially, if you did not get in during COVID, or right before COVID, or right after COVID during that period of time, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. Prices are up, interest rates are up, rent is up, everything is up. And corporate greed is up. But y'all, this didn't happen overnight. This shit started way back in 2010 when they inserted themselves in the single family housing market. It should have never been allowed to begin with. And there's still no control over it. There's big firms that are eating up all the single family homes and pricing you guys out of the market. Small legislative moves are trying to be made here in California, but it's too late. It's too out of control. There's people in my neighborhood that are renting $4,000 a month for these homes that are owned by investors. I would just say, don't try to buy right now. It's too unstable. And even if you could, it's so out of control. You know, just hold on to whatever money you have, keep stacking your money, and hopefully this shit will change, because y'all deserve a damn break. All right, love y'all, bye.
The quote-unquote safe route for Americans is absolutely gone. Most people I know in college right now are in serious student debt getting a finance degree, only to learn from their finance degree that going $50,000 into student debt was probably a terrible financial decision.
And what really gets people upset now is that most of the information you can learn in college, you can just find online and learn it through AI. And even when you're in college, most of your teachers aren't teaching you the material properly, and it's a very limited time space when you can actually get that instructor one-on-one time to learn a topic. So AI now has essentially replaced teachers' jobs as that one-on-one instructor with students when they need the additional help. And to me, this is just playing right into the whole idea that college is a scam. And unless college completely flips around and allows students to essentially control their degrees on their entirety, then I don't see college being a real route for most Americans in the coming future. Because AI is simply going to take too many jobs, and Americans need to know not only how to use AI, but how to pick careers where they aren't going to lose their job. And sadly, college really isn't giving them those type of careers. I'm not saying drop out of college and go into the trades right now or anything like that, but the white picket fence and the American dream is a lot harder to achieve for younger generations than any other generation before.
Listen, if you still want to come to America because you believe in the American dream, let me tell you something. That dream died like 30 plus years ago, and now we're living in a dream that involves paying $10 for a dozen of shitty fucking eggs, paying $2,000 a month for an apartment in the ghetto that's about 700 square feet and it has no walls. And then if you want to go to university here, you're looking at around $100,000 for a 4-year education. That's on the low end. But in those 4 years, you might get shot because everyone seems to want to shoot each other for some ungodly reason. Then you're going to graduate thinking, oh, I graduated, I have a degree now, I'm going to get a good job. Your good job is going to pay you about $40,000 starting off, maybe, and then they're going to say you're going to work 40 hours a week. When in reality, you're going to be working about 50 plus hours a week because they're going to guilt trip you in by saying, we're a family, we're a team, we help each other. And they're not going to pay you overtime for that because why would they? If they get your help for free, why would they pay you for that? Okay? Then there's no work-life balance. That company you're working for now doesn't want to give you vacation days until like maybe your second year working there. And those vacation days are maybe 4 days out of the whole entire year. That includes holidays. All right? Then if you're sick, too bad you still have to come to work. Okay? Then if you want to buy groceries, your groceries are going to be your whole entire paycheck because no one can afford to eat here anymore. God, I go to the grocery store for 4 things. It's like $50. I'm just saying it sucks living here. I don't want to live here. I want to leave. So maybe you should rethink your whole American dream because it's not what it's all cracked up to be. Okay? Okay, love you. Bye.
So for decades, getting a college degree was presented as the safest path to success. Parents believed it. Teachers believed it. And the students, they all believed it. The message was simple. Get an education and you'll have opportunities. That's guaranteed. And of course, many millennials listened. They studied, they graduated, they entered the workforce. But reality didn't always match expectations. Some graduated into recessions. Others entered industries with stagnant wages. Many actually found themselves carrying student debt while trying to start adult life. And suddenly, the degree that was supposed to create freedom felt more complicated than expected. So I think this is where the frustration became impossible to ignore because home ownership wasn't supposed to feel impossible. Previous generations often viewed buying a home as a normal milestone. You work, you save, you buy. Simple. But for many millennials watched housing prices climb faster than their savings. Every year felt like the target moved further away. So they were forced to take a second job, but still the target kept moving further away. Some saved for down payments only to discover prices had jumped again. Others finally qualified for mortgages and realized the monthly payments felt overwhelming. And eventually, people started wondering, am I chasing something I'll never catch? The problem wasn't just buying homes. Rent became part of the story too, because when a large portion of income goes towards rents, saving becomes difficult. People aren't only paying for shelter, they are sacrificing future goals. Money that could have gone toward investments. Money that could have gone towards a home. Money that could have gone toward building wealth. Instead, it actually disappears every month. And over time, many people start feeling like they're running in place. What's interesting is how all of this affects other life decisions. Marriage, gets delayed. Children get delayed. Major commitments get delayed. Not necessarily because people don't want those things, but because they don't feel ready. A lot of millennials imagined reaching certain milestones by certain ages. They had targets. Then life became more and more expensive. Housing became harder. Financial security became harder. And suddenly, the timeline changed because they had no option. Some people are still trying to achieve goals they thought they'd reach years ago. I think this is where a lot of the disappointment comes from. People aren't upset because life requires efforts. Most people expected that. But the frustration is coming from feeling like the rules changed. The rules of the game changed. Millennials did many of the things society encouraged. Education, career, responsibility, hard work pays. They did all that. Yet, many still feel financially fragile. And honestly, that's very confusing, especially when previous generations often describe a very different experience. Then, of course, there's the comparison problem, because every day people see others buying homes, traveling, starting families, living seemingly perfect lives, and it's easy to feel left behind, even when many people are quietly struggling with the exact same challenges. Sometimes social media actually creates the illusion that everyone else figured life out except you, when in reality, millions of people are dealing with similar frustrations silently. What's actually fascinating is that many millennials seem to be changing how they define success, because traditional milestones right now feel harder to reach. So their priorities shifted. People value flexibility, work-life balance, experiences, mental health. Success starts looking less like status and more like peace of mind. And honestly, that might be one of the biggest cultural shifts happening right now. Actually, here's the interesting part. Most millennials haven't given up. They still want homes, families, stability. The dream itself didn't disappear. What's changed is the path. The path became longer, more expensive, and more uncertain. And that's why so many people feel frustrated. Not because they stopped believing in the dream, but because reaching it feels harder than they were led to expect. At the end of the day, this conversation isn't really about just millennials. It's about expectations. Because millions of people followed a roadmap they believed would lead somewhere. And now, many are wondering whether the destination changed along the way. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and stay tuned. And of course, let me know in the comments. Do you think millennials got unlucky, or has the American dream simply become harder to work? Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.